Geoengineering and climate change. Yes, Earth's climate changes, and yes, we see it's getting warmer. However, with so many compounded unknowable factors and the potential for foul play, we can't definitively say the extreme weather we're seeing is not intentional geoengineering. The Earth's climate has always changed, but the rate of change is historically a slow process, although we did have short periods of time of rapid climate change from massive events. Earth's atmosphere is comparable to a gas chamber with layers of composition. As humans, we change our environment with pollution that changes the ocean, the gases in our atmosphere, and that changes the weather patterns. All life on Earth is being forced to evolve faster than usual to survive the ways we're changing the environment. The sun also goes through cycles, and when it's hotter, we're hotter, and the sun cycles actually influence consciousness and gene expression of all organisms on Earth. It's very interesting, and we see that there are zones on Earth that are the optimal conditions for life to be productive based on exposure to the sun. America is located in that band located above the equator, and so is China. As climate change progresses and the sun cycle continues, we see that the optimal zones change as well moving up north. Russia owns or operates in the majority of that area that in the future will be optimal for productivity, meaning Russia has a vested interest in climate change progressing. Geoengineering doesn't have to be only unintentional from humans dumping carbon into the atmosphere. We also engage in geoengineering in intentional ways that used to be considered a conspiracy theory. For instance, you can research how in the capital of the United Arab Emirates they've been cloud seeding the clouds of storms with chemtrails containing salt that produces bigger rain droplets. They're using geoengineering to make it rain there in the desert every few weeks. Imagine being manipulated into thinking chemtrails, and geoengineering is a conspiracy theory too. Sorry to pop that bubble, but yes, geoengineering is real life. That's one example of how geoengineering is being used to manipulate the weather, and notice how you had no idea it was going on publicly for almost 2 decades. Where is geoengineering happening in America and the rest of the world? That's a good question you're finally asking. If Russia wants to induce global warming and climate change, they would be melting the ice caps using technology to do it at a faster rate than how they would melt naturally. They can launch nukes in the upper atmosphere to create holes that let more radiation in, as we've already done accidentally. They can plant nuclear factories underneath the ice or in the water to melt them from underneath. Separately, they can also taint the air that we see through satellite imaging that wind currents would take into America. There are just infinite possibilities, and we need to be thinking about the most likely scenarios instead of being completely oblivious to the possibilities. Makes sense, right? Is man-made intentional geoengineering the cause of the radical weather we're experiencing? It would be stupid to reject that very real possibility, right? We can also geoengineer planet Earth to be restored to its natural state that we found it in. Manipulating the weather also has unforeseeable consequences on global weather systems, so this requires major transparency and regulations. The solution to pollution is the following insights. We 100% have to immediately stop using plastic and replace it with biodegradable materials we already have developed. Pollution levels should be in decline, not on an uptrend. If we no longer use plastic or a long list of dangerous chemical agents, then we can focus on managing our waste sustainably. To do this, we will plot out the areas of human civilization that still have not built the infrastructure or people's education to dispose of waste sustainably. The major polluters are businesses that don't care about the environment and people that are uneducated. It should be an international ethics violation to pollute the environment, and if we actually held entities accountable, it wouldn't be accepted as common practice. If we stop the flow of pollution into the air and oceans, and the polluters stop polluting, then we're only restoring nature from that point on. However, we must not let globalized forces use the pollution problem and the global warming problem as a justification for imposing additional technocratic systems. Notice how, if it's good people in control, then it's what we need to save the Earth. And if they're evil people in control, then they're just assuming the role as the saviors that we'll give up sovereignty to. We literally have to globalize our efforts against man-made pollution happening globally, but it's about doing so in the least imposing form possible. There shouldn't be an international council dictating domestic affairs in some small region or a grouping of corporations and billionaires running the show alone. It's supposed to be guided by our elected leaders of the people, by the people, for the people.